Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to PWB Global Publishing, One Voice, PW Speaks. Today, I'm so happy to be able to connect with you and talk about something that's really key, really important to me, and I hope it's important to you as well. We're going to be met with two people today, two people you've probably seen in book fairs, but I want you to get a chance to get to know them a little bit better. From UNESCO, Cristina Puerta, and from IBBY International, Carolina Ballester. Now, they should be showing up soon. I don't know where they are. They've disappeared into thin air, but in the meantime, let me remind you, there's Carolina and there's Cristina. Before we get them to talk to us, hello, Carolina. Hello, Cristina. This is a
Hello.
simple reminder to all that if you have any questions, any comments that you want to bring up, you can feel free to send them off, and we'll be seeing them at the bottom of our screen, and we'll try and answer questions. So we're here today to talk about a project that Carolina and Cristina put together. It's a UNESCO IBBY initiative. And before we talk about this wonderful project, I wanted to spend a bit of time with Carolina and Cristina to talk about what they do, what their business is all about, and so we get a better sense of why they connected some time ago in Bologna. Thank you, Elena, for your great fair so that we could meet people around a panini or a panino. Carolina, how
Yep.
are you? I'm happy to meet with you, and I'm happy to talk with you. You are the Secretary General, Director General, the big boss of IBBY International. Tell us what you do at IBBY. What is IBBY? What does the acronym stand for? People have seen that around. They've seen it at the book fairs, and they might sort of, what does IBBY mean? What does it do? Tell us about that.
So, hello from Basel, Switzerland. That's where our headquarters are based. I am technically executive director. That's the official title. And I am the boss of a little office of two people, which include myself. Despite the reasonable size of our international office, we're at the heart of a network of professionals and volunteers focused on the children's book industry, children's literature creation and research that spans around 86 countries. We've been around since 1953. We are the proud organizers of important awards like the Hans Christian Andersen Award, as well as two reading promotion awards, because we think that reading promotion is important. We bring together collections of books, of international books that our members around the world recommend to us. We also have grants and funding lines for reading promotion projects all across the world. And our main mission, our motto, is to bring books and children together. In our statutes, one of our main line of action is to protect and uphold the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, especially in what refers to access to culture, access to book, literacy, etc. So that's a very short overview of what we do. We're at book fairs, we organize congresses, and we're a jolly network of very varied people, writers, illustrators, translators, publishers, librarians. We're like cross industry, working all together to implement our mission in the countries where we're present.
So IBBY is its baseline is books and children. So regardless of what part of the world you are in terms of the book industry, be it you're a librarian, you're a teacher, you're a literacy agent, whatever, you could be connected to IBBY. And what you're saying is with I think I heard correctly, 86. 80. That means that someone somewhere might have IBBY in his country or in his region and might not know, and they should check it out. Is there any way for us to find out can we go on your website and find out where all the IBBYs are, so I can find out, hey, I'm in Canada, or I'm in Malaysia, is there a way to find out if there's an IBBY in my town?
Yes, there's on our website, www.eb.org. You will find a list of sections together with the liaisons for each national section. And you can contact them. They're usually always happy to get support and ideas and new members. Yeah.
Perfect. And you mentioned that you were working very hard at upholding one of the UN plans, and it just happens that we have somebody who is connected to the UN in some way with being head of publications at UNESCO. Cristina Puerta, welcome. It's good to see you as well. And perhaps on your end, you can tell us a bit about what you do at UNESCO. People think of UNESCO on many different elements, but some people might not even know that UNESCO has a publication program, so tell us more about that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Simon, and lovely to be with Carolina as well. Thank you to these wonderful Publishers Without Borders network, beloved network, so important to keep us all together and connected. And thank you for this invitation today. It's wonderful to be here. So yes, UNESCO, it's a familiar name. It's the UN Agency for Education, Science and Culture, and also Communication. The mandate is quite tentacular. And sometimes we get the feeling that we're all over the place because we're working on education issues, on ocean, on world heritage, intangible heritage, on the protection of journalists, on bioethics and neurotechnology, and many, many different fields. So this house is filled with experts in these different thematics. I'm personally at headquarters in Paris, France, but we have offices in 53 different countries and 194 member states to UNESCO. So it's rather huge. And yes, we do produce publications. We're not a publishing house, but we publish 350 something publications every 2 years, which is huge. And most of those publications are available under open access on our UNESCO online library and repository. And many are for free distribution, aimed at policymakers, member states in general, specialists in the different fields. So we provide advice, state-of-the-art global reports on education, water, etc. But we also have this program for trade publications, which is of course smaller, but we also have the idea to target audiences at large, including children, to let them know about our programs and also to alert them on specific situations around the world where we also need not only the specialists and the people in the governments to be aware, but everyday people everywhere, and to hopefully join efforts towards the preservation of our culture and our mutual understanding. So one of the things that, some things that are done from the publications unit where I am is precisely first support all our colleagues in their more technical expert sort of publications, and also develop our own editorial program, which is basically illustrated books like coffee table books and books for children, which is the reason why I'm often roaming around in Bologna. So that's a very good excuse.
It's a perfect excuse, and I wanna send. I mentioned Elena and Bologna Book Fair because this is where we connected the first time, the three of us together. But I want to also, shout out to fellowships, because that's where Cristina and I met for the first time in Cairo. And it was the fellowship in Shanghai that got me and Carolina connected as well, because Carolina used to work with the Shanghai Book Fair. So a shout out to the fellowships. You do great stuff, but you connect people together, and it brings out great projects. One of the things that I heard about when I was talking with Cristina was about a book called What Makes Us Human. and it's a book now that's published in multiple languages. And I have the privilege in my company to be publishing that book in French for North America and Europe. And yes, there it is. And the reason Cristina was really gung-ho about this book that Victor wrote was because, Cristina, tell us, it's the decade of what? La décennie? It's the decade of what?
The International Decade of Indigenous Languages, which began in 2022. Being a decade, it ends in 2032. And it's a decade decided by the United Nations, and it's a decade co-led by UNESCO. So we have this 10-year action plan. And one of the aims of the International Decade is, first of all, to alert of the quite catastrophic state of the world's indigenous languages. We have today some 7,000 languages alive, whether spoken, written, or signed. And 40% of those languages risk disappearing by this century due to lack of speakers. And that is just huge. So the decade aims at alerting people, not only governments or people specialized in indigenous languages, but the global community, which is quite vast and ambitious about this situation, and also to mobilize stakeholders, communities, into preserving, revitalizing, and promoting these languages. And one of the objectives is to reach younger generations, which is something that is a big, big challenge for us. But gladly, we find people interested in doing undertaking similar efforts.
So now let's go to the crux of the reason why we're together today. This is the initiative that started the whole thing rolling, and together you discussed it after the panini that you had in Bologna. You got together, the two of you, and started thinking about what could you do collectively as two great organizations to push that even further in terms of making sure that people are aware of this situation, this tragic situation. When you think about it, we worry about certain animals and plants disappearing, but we rarely think about, and we don't hear much about it in classrooms, about the disappearing of languages, which is usually the disappearance of a culture as well, you know? So tell us about what came out. Carolina, tell us what came out of this idea that you both had.
So that panini was like I would say a perfect alignment of stars, because while in Bologna, IBBY also holds its bi-yearly executive committee meetings, and we had with our international board, we're about 15 people, a discussion about our international list that we've been doing for many years, that is called the Honor List. This is the 2024 edition. The last one, we're actually working right now on the 2026, and it's got about 200 titles submitted by your members in these famous 86 countries in their different official languages. And we had been discussing right before that encounter in Bologna about the validity and the accuracy of the concept of official language or national language in the context of today's world, knowing that the Decade of Indigenous Languages, led by UNESCO, was already ringing a bell to us. And we were thinking of how we could actually expand our list to languages that may not have an official political recognition from the states, but had existence, importance, and needed promotion, visibility, and protection. And someone said, well, why don't you create a new list? I was like, as I told you, we're just two people in the office. Creating a new project of that scale was not really feasible. And a couple of days later, as Simon explained, we just clicked with Cristina. And I remember in our first meeting, Cristina, we met in Paris, not in Bologna, because our agendas were packed, but I happened to be going to Paris. We had the same idea that project shouldn't be competitive, but that it should be an accumulative approach, that we wanted to make a catalog, that we wanted to put all those languages on Evil Keel, put them together, bring them in a big pot together and make them make them travel around the world, and make them shine. I remember that was like a key moment of our conversation. You were actually afraid I would come with an Up-Teams award idea. Do you remember?
Okay, I think the word there is no comments. Yes.
No, I can comment, of course, because this is not about, it's exactly that. It's not about excluding everybody else and just highlighting one or the best. This is not the best. I think the best is to have all these languages survive, and the efforts behind them from publishers, local communities, even governments sometimes, to create books that actually hold and keep the language and keep it alive. It's something that we have been discussing these past few days as well among us. Producing books in languages that are so-called indigenous or otherwise endangered is a real challenge for whoever is undertaking this, because it's not always easy to reach the communities, to give them a format that they are ready to embrace, because, well, distribution, of course, is always the headache for every publisher. It's sometimes very hard, and you don't necessarily get the return on investment for such a project. So I guess the easiest solution is to simply go with the main flow and leave these languages aside. But as you were saying, Simon, these languages, like any language, holds ancestral knowledge and views and of relationships between the people and their planet and their community. And when that one language is lost, then all that knowledge, all that experience is lost as well. So we may have probably embarked on a very ambitious project to keep these languages alive by highlighting books that have been published. But for us, it's very important to offer a glimpse of linguistic diversity through books. I myself am a former children's books publisher, so of course I'm as we say in French, dans ma sauce, in my
In your comfort zone.
In my comfort zone. But of course, for UNESCO to undertake this without it being a prize, there are already other UNESCO prizes. It's also a very difficult spot as well in terms of prizes precisely not being inclusive. But working with IBBY is very important, because IBBY has all this fantastic experience putting together lists. And so that makes a lot easier the conversations we have, and okay, how are we going to do that? Well, how do you often do with your lists? And those lists are so prestigious and are also guiding librarians, book promoters, publishers, even authors, illustrators, into developing their own projects. So it's probably one of the things that we would like for this selection to be to present other possibilities of publishing books, other voices, other visuals that may inspire other people, even to translate them into, why not, more global languages.
So what I'm hearing from the two of you, that there's a lot of work to be done to ensure the survival, the success, and the life of multiple languages, multiple indigenous languages and cultures. And you've picked one slice of what can be done. There's lots of stuff that can be done. There's probably lots of things that are happening, and probably some of the people that are paying attention and listening in, maybe in the Philippines or in Malaysia, they're already actively working on saving these languages and these indigenous languages. And one of the things you decided to do together was, how about we collate a certain number of titles that will give an opportunity for society and people in the publishing industry, in the library industry, and maybe governments to be sensitized to the whole notion of, these books represent a minute part of what's going on and the fragility of what's going on in the world. So either of you, I'm not gonna pick one, but so. Technically, right now, you're looking for books. You're looking for children's picture books that have some sort of indigenous flavor. And we're going to talk about the word indigenous because the three of us have talked about this word, and it can create a lot of confusion in people's minds, what it means to be an indigenous language. So we're going to talk about that. But before we talk about those elements about tell us about how do we go about submitting books. I mean, I've got a book. I think it might be a fit for what you're asking. What do I do? Do I send it by mail? Do I call you? What do I do? Either of you.
The call for applications is available on both the UNESCO and the IBBY websites, in French and in English, and
Spanish.
And Spanish. Oh, good. And from there, you will see the regulations. The procedure is like there's a digital form that you send to an email that both UNESCO and IBBY can access. And you send a PDF of the book. And that's the deadline that is showing on the screen. It's 15th of December. We feel like gold diggers because many of the publishing initiatives that have the courage to publish in Indigenous and Endangered Languages are very isolated. Some of them are not even in like capital cities, and we're appealing to all our networks to really reach out as far as possible to help us find these books. So once you submit your digital form and the PDF of your book, you're also asked to send one physical copy of the book to the UNESCO headquarters in Paris. And from there, starting from next year, we have a committee of children's literature and Indigenous languages specialists that we've composed carefully that will start working on establishing the selection and helping us like coming up with this catalog that should be like a status quo of what is happening right now in 2024, like from 2018 to 2026 in that specific field. And of course we hope there will be more catalogs, but this will be our starting point to know what we have, what is missing, and hopefully engage in a collective reflection on how to make these languages move forward on the children's publishing market.
Well, as a matter of fact, we got a question about that, like what can I do as a publisher or me involved in the publishing industry? What can I do? And I think you just mentioned it, Carolina. I think one of the issues or one of the ideas behind this project is that it will perhaps allow us to initiate those conversations, perhaps get some ideas from other countries or other areas in the world where there is action being taken, and some actions sometimes can be transferred into another territory. It makes sense. It also allows us to sort of feel that we're not alone in this process.
Yeah.
Oh, Paris. I can hear Paris.
Yeah. If I can add to that and to the very interesting question that's been raised, thank you. What can publishers do? You're already doing a lot by doing books because you're, again, holding the language there as a record. Now, for disappearing languages or languages in danger or Indigenous languages, because one doesn't necessarily imply the other, there are several options, I think. Of course, each publisher has to measure his or her own market and audience and means to do things. But for example, trying to rescue stories from Indigenous communities or doing bilingual publications with the main or national language, whatever it is for official language, and then also the translation into an Indigenous or endangered language. I think it's very important because it already raises in children the idea that there are other ways of saying the same thing, but that probably they're not really saying the same because translation is obviously never fully transparent. So that's one thing. But I think that publishers need not stay in their publishing world either. This global effort to have languages promoted, preserved, revitalized also requires the help of governments. And you need to go and talk to your government, to your Ministry of Education, to your Ministry of Culture, to your local town hall and say, okay, I have this project. Help me get it into the public library, into public schools. How do I do it? Because it's not just about saying, okay, I'm going to do a book about a story about an Indigenous community in my country to try to feature it. But we all know as publishers that no matter how fantastic the book that we produce is, it's nothing if there are no readers getting the book. So there needs to be also efforts towards that community and a wider community too. So I think you need to partner as much as possible with public entities and to make sure that your content that you're putting so much work into is actually there and reachable, including by those communities that may be marginalized and where the stories come from.
All right. So we've sort of crossed around and talked about some of the things that can be done by publishers and all that. I want to go back to this project because this is the reason we're together. I'm a publisher. I'm somewhere in some part of the world, and I'm still not sure, is my book the right one? Is it an Indigenous language? Is it threatened? I think we need to dwell a bit on that question to make sure that people understand what we mean by Indigenous and how, and perhaps put aside that notion of a very strict definition of what is meant. And we're not talking about international definition. We're talking about this group's reflection on what the word means for this specific call for books. It's not, we're not redefining, we're not going to ask Oxford or HarperCollins to change its dictionaries. This is not the point. We're talking about what the two of you and what the members of this this committee, they will be looking at. So what are we talking about when we're talking about Indigenous? You wanna try it, Carolina, Cristina, either of you?
I just start with one thing, but it's really Cristina's field because she has to answer that question, I guess, quite often.
I'm not going to answer it. So no, and I'm going to explain why I'm not going to answer it.
Because there's no definition, my dear.
No, at UN level, no United Nations body has adopted a definition of the term Indigenous because it's much too complicated. And what is said simply is that an Indigenous language is a language spoken by an Indigenous community. So this is interesting. An Indigenous community has been defined broadly as a distinctive community from the socio-economical and environmental system and context from the main one in the country where they are officially. So they have it's communities that have their own language, their own legal system, their own economy, and their own experience and knowledge of the world in exchange and their relationship with the environment. That is as much as we will get. And also because we are not here to define who is Indigenous and who is not. The principle and the reason why no UN body has adopted any definition is because they think that first and foremost, this is about self-identification. So it's the community that has to say, okay, we consider ourselves Indigenous, and the UN entities and probably global community aside from that, they recognize that self-identification. So we're not here to say yes or no, or you are or you're not. By the way, the term Indigenous is quite tricky, and it doesn't really work in many places. In many places, it's tribes, it's nomads, it's hunter-gatherers, it's the First Nations, it's Aboriginals. Sometimes the term Indigenous is very complicated, it has negative connotations as well. And so this is about self-definition, and we acknowledge we're not here to judge who is and who is not. On the other hand, if it can help too, there is the indigenous and endangered, which is the other concept we have for our collection of remarkable books. The endangered languages, and for that we're following a methodology used by UNESCO in the World Atlas for Languages, which is a work in progress, is we have the methodology establishes a number of speakers depending on the risk of disappearance of the language. So those you're going to find on our websites, either IBBY's or UNESCO's, and they are languages out of use, critically endangered, severely endangered, definitely endangered, potentially vulnerable, and endangered / unsafe. And so you'll see it more precisely in the in the website, but it means less than 7.5 million speakers.
Okay, so we're looking at those two elements. The first one being very large, and it's related to an identity. But the second element that we're looking for in this collection is more specifically the ones that are in that list of at risk of some sort. That there is an urgency to awaken our world about these languages. Have I got this right?
Absolutely.
Am I going in the right? And I want to go back to my personal situation.
You have to be careful. Not all indigenous languages are endangered, and vice versa. Not all endangered languages are indigenous. But the two concepts we have in the title of our beautiful baby project are not exclusive. It's indigenous and endangered. So
okay.
it can be
and I want to use a North American example because I'm lucky enough to live in North America, which is a great territory, and there's over 600 indigenous communities in my country, all of them having their own specificity, their own language, their own, and some of them cross over, but they all have their specificity, and you can multiply that if you integrate the United States and then Mexico, which is all part of North America. And then I want to talk about Cajuns in which is not a First Nation language. It's old French, right? And so this, in their definition, because maybe there's less than 7.5 million, maybe they would be considered a language at risk of disappearing and being, smothered by other languages. And then suddenly there's only, the old grandma that knows how to speak that language and remembers what those words mean. Is that what we're talking about? Are we talking about expanding our mind to not just local indigenous in the sense of First Nations, but rather both in, at risk, that the at risk is really key, but it's not only that, but I think what we're looking for is something like that. Am I going in the right position, or should you be redirecting
Absolutely.
me?
No, that is the right direction.
Okay.
Yeah.
So people who are out there, publishers, but it could be, I guess it could be a librarian who knows about a book on her shelf. And she knows that book has potential. Maybe she could reach out to that publisher and say, hey, did you submit that book? Because could be potentially interesting.
They can submit the book directly.
Or they can submit the book themselves. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's important to know because this is not a publisher-related element. This is a book-related element. We're looking for books that deal with this kind of particular situation. Okay.
Any organization or institution, company that has an interest in the topic and knowledge of books that match the criteria can submit. Usually at IBBY, the nomination process is always channeled by our section. But for this specific project, it made so much sense to be as inclusive as possible. So the participation process is really open.
Yes, we're even getting questions or interest from the like small organizations from the communities, from the indigenous communities themselves. And of course, as long as it's not just one person saying, here's my book, why don't you publish it? Because that we're also getting that, and that's not what we're here to do.
No.
But yes, even local indigenous associations or organizations can submit projects. Many of these projects are completely outside the radar of even sometimes public libraries or regular trade publishers, because these are really the efforts of the communities themselves. We
Right.
have a series of examples of yes, the communities trying to produce content to keep the traditions of their ancestors recorded and alive. So I think we're going to see a wide variety of editorial projects and even strategies and target audiences and you name it.
Okay, and you mentioned something really important, and I think that's key, because you're right. We're not asking you to submit manuscripts and proposals for publishing. This is not about a publishing. This is not the purpose of this call. This is a call to collect books that already exist and to collate them in a sort of catalog. Let's talk about how you're going to do that. You mentioned, I think, the committee, and so can we hear more about how you're, what you did in terms of making sure that you had a diverse list of members in your committee?
Okay, so I think we have a committee of about, what would you say, Cristina, about 15 people, 14? One of which is our beloved Simon de Jocas. He couldn't not be there, given the fact that he created the connection. And then, well, we paid attention to the geographical balance within the group, the difference of roles, like as many perspectives as possible. We have, of course, people from the communities involved. This is absolutely key and completely in the philosophy of the project. Men-women balance, even though we know how things are in children's publishing. Women are usually in majority, and that might be slightly reflected in our committee. But the committee will meet online. We will announce the list very, very soon, the list of people involved, and they do cover like an amazing ground, like in terms of linguistic knowledge. There will be a lot of discussion because it's our first catalog, to decide on really how we build it. What we are sure of is that the languages and the books will be the protagonists. We'll probably organize it around the prevalence of languages, and then we will edit it, print it, and show it together with the books at the first exhibition, which will take part within the next IBBY World Congress, which takes place in Canada next summer.
And we'll talk about that a little later. So these members, 10, 12, 15 members, geographically and gender, and you've really worked hard at making sure that the people around the table will be discussing and this profound conversation about what fits in and what doesn't fit in, because that's the truth. One of the realities is that we can't put everything we're going to get. It would be just like it'd become like a big dictionary of books, and that's not what your purpose is. You're looking at creating a first look at, and it's very important. I think we need to make that clear to the people who would be submitting, is that it doesn't take away the quality or the value of the book that might not end up in the document. This is not a jury for the best books. It's about representation. It's about making sure that we have a wide variety of titles that allow people to realize the richness of the values of varied indigenous and endangered languages and cultures around the world. So you have to understand that if you're submitting your books, don't think that if we don't put it in the catalog that you've been sort of like marked as not a good book, but rather we already had some books in that category, and we're just trying to put a variety of books And we may eventually find a way of presenting the other books that were submitted so that you get a sense that there are a lot of books out there that may be of some sort of value. And you also mentioned something else, Carolina, and I want to insist on that. First catalog. It's the first. Eventually, if we have the means and the ability, I think what you would like to do is to consider this as an ongoing project of getting people to think about and talk about. That's the initial point, right? Is talking about Indigenous languages and the fragility of Indigenous language that are endangered.
Yes, and there is something that I'd like to add, is that no matter how representative we want this catalog to be, we're going to work with what we receive. So if you don't send us, or if people don't send us their books, then there is no way for us to know about them. And so we've been working a lot this year on targeting our communication, promoting this project through the networks we have and through their own networks afterwards. We're trying to focus a lot on African publishers, for example. Africa has 2,000 of the living languages, of the 7,000 living languages alive. That is an enormous amount.
Portion, yeah.
But still, and we're making a lot of effort to have African publishers submit their publications, but we need to get them before 15th of December, because otherwise we're not going to be able to consider them for inclusion. Same goes for Latin America, Southeast Asia, and not only. Gladly, we're also getting books from European countries, even dialects from different countries. So we're hoping that it'll be as representative and as rich as possible. But there may be also people deceived by it, because they will say, okay, but there is nothing from this region. Well, this is our first call. So the wider we can get this message across, then it's fantastic, but we're going to have to work with what we get. Maybe if there's a second call later, people will have heard more about it. But we're trying our best to get attention and to contact people before the deadline is finished. So 15th of December.
Carolina, you want to add something to that?
Yeah, well, whether we really hope that we will be able to continue, but whatever happens, the fact that we have that catalog, to me, has like two other like added objectives. One is that we've brought together such a nice committee that who's been working for a long time around the topics of bibliodiversity and linguistic diversity, that I hope it will create a new like circle of reflection among them. That's one thing. The other thing is that with the catalog, as global as it will get, I also hope that these courageous publishing initiatives that are all around the world will just like realize that they are not alone in their region, in their social and cultural reality doing the same, and that at the same time it might at least trigger an international informal exchange of like looking for each other and knowing how people on the other side of the planet in Australia are doing books in Indigenous languages for children, speaking from Peru, for example, and being part of that global community is the starting point to raise awareness. IBBY has experience in that. We started collections with angles and approaches that, were so minoritarian, that books were too expensive to produce, or who cares about special needs. And today our catalogs are like key references, and those segments are very important to publishers. It's reaching the mainstream. That was the goal. So that's our little, we're starting that. We're starting that with this initiative.
I'm hearing two things, and I'm going to be speaking directly to all of you who are paying attention now, or those who will be answering or looking at this later on, because this is being recorded, so you can watch it. you're a publisher, you're a bookseller, you're a librarian, you're somebody who's in the educational industry, and you know about books. Don't just assume that somebody's going to take care of sending it before the 15th of December. Make that action. We would rather have the book 3 times submitted and sort of say, good, that obviously this book is something. And if you know a publisher or somebody in an area that you know has a book, and write to them, send them a message saying, hey, did you hear about this? Submit your book. You shouldn't think about the idea whether or not it will be or not accepted or may be. Let us be the judge of that. We'll take the time to value the quality and all of those things and whether or not, but please send that message out there. We need your help because the time is getting shorter and shorter. And there are areas in this world where there is still not enough books being proposed. And those are probably the places where we need the most. Cristina mentioned 2,000 languages in Africa. We need those books. We need to see them come in. So make sure that you're getting those books out there into the system so that Cristina and Carolina and the members of the committee have the pleasure of discovering those works. That's really, really key. I want to take a few minutes. We're already close to the end, ladies. I'm sorry to say that we're having fun here, but all good things have an end. I wanted to leave you with a couple of more minutes of each, to do your pitch, and then I want to take some time with you, Carolina, just to talk about, because you mentioned it, that IBBY will have its Congress in 2026, August to 2026. In my country, in the capital of my country, Ottawa, and it's just a coincidence. It could have been somewhere else, but this is where it's happening, and that's where we're going to be presenting this catalog. Again, it's just because it's this year's, and it just happens to be split down the middle of the Indigenous languages decades, right? So it's perfect timing. So before we talk about IBBY Congress, Cristina, Carolina, one last pitch. You're speaking to the people. They're listening to you. And I'm going to double check and see if there's any questions for us as well.
Main pitch is let us know what's out there. We are really, really looking forward to discover new types of books and books that really put the focus on a different sort of publishing, on linguistic diversity. I'm seeing here in the questions, where can we submit books, or is there a link or site? Yes. So I'm sending these through the private chat. If somebody from PWB can put them in the other one, because I think I need to do some mechanical thing that is beyond me at this stage. But
Shant will take care of that.
Yes.
And
so
we'll put it on all the PWB.
Fantastic. I've sent the IBBY page. I'm going to send the UNESCO one. It's exactly the same thing. There's a form you need to fill in, and then you need to send one copy to UNESCO headquarters to the publications unit, IBBY UNESCO award, and we'll receive it here. That's one thing. But do share whatever you know exists. This is really, really important, and we look forward to receiving your submissions before or on 15th of December.
Great. Carolina, before I give you the floor, there's a question coming in from Anara, and she asked, what's the accuracy in the terms of quality, and does it have to be an official Indigenous person writing? I think we're not going to get into those fine details. Don't go there. That's not what we want. We don't want you to think, oh yeah, but this person wrote about that. And no, we're looking for books. And right now you got to be thinking that if you feel that this might be a good book, regardless of who wrote it, where you just submit it, and we will be able to give feedback in terms of what it is. So you just don't. Am I right, ladies? That we don't want to get bogged down in technical issues about, the name of the guy is not Indigenous. Is it submittable? That's not the question. We're talking about the languages, So, Carolina.
Yes. Well, mind you, Simon, we do say in the regulations that there's an added value, a bonus, if somehow the books that are submitted are related to the 10 outputs of the Global Action Plan of the International Decade, which you can also discover on the UNESCO and IBBY websites. And it's a series of terms and concepts that's, like, to make it very simple, turn around the empowerment of communities, their social, cultural, and economic development. So if you think a little bit of the SDG book club, and the work that IBBY, Bologna, and the UN Publication Services did together to show the SDGs through children's books, that would be the same. But this is not mandatory. It's just
exactly. If you're not sure, you're better off sending it than sort of questioning and then sort of doubting and then saying, I don't think it fits. It's better to send it in, and then we'll be able, as a committee, to review those questions, but don't bog yourself in those technical questions, because sometimes it's not totally clear. As a publisher, you may not have all of the specific competencies to know whether or not it fits into what you're describing. So I think we need to just say submit, and then we'll look at it, right?
You have to keep these guys busy for the next 4 months, right?
Yeah. Thank you, Kevin. So thank you very much. We're coming to the end of this session, but Carolina, do you want to give us a quick review on what's going to be happening this August in Ottawa? Why should I be coming?
because you have to.
Okay,
that's just for you.
Everybody, you got that. You all have to come, because Carolina said, because you have to. She wasn't just talking to me; she was talking to everybody.
So IBBY congresses are a big momentum of the children's book community, whether you're an IBBY member or not. It happens every other year, usually in the summer in a different, and it's hosted by a different country every time. And it's true that, like, when IBBY Canada won the bid to organize the 26th Congress with a theme, because all our congresses have a theme, and the theme is listening to each other's voices, nobody knew that we would be today at the event presenting this project, because the project didn't exist. So look at how beautiful this alignment is, because it was meant to be, in a way. So our Congress encompasses an academic, let's say, ish program. It's a space, a forum for debate and discussion around children's book creation and publishing. It's also where the IBBY Awards are presented, and we're, because of the theme and because of the location, in a bilingual city, in a country with how many First Nation communities did you say, Simon? 600?
600.
Yeah. And hence quite a few Indigenous languages. Indigenous languages are going to have a big role to play in the program, with a special night dedicated to it, with wonderful speakers from different continents. IBBY congresses are fun, actually. But that I will let Simon confirm to you all guys after he's come next summer.
Well, hopefully we can get people to sign in and come to and
we will share also the link of the Congress, where you already have, like, quite a few hints about the keynote speakers, the program, and the technical details about how to participate. Registrations.
Sorry, I was going to say, and just to mention that, contrary to what people believe, it does not snow in August in Canada. That's not true. It's warm. It's hot. It's as hot as it can be in Cairo. We can go all the way up to 35, 40. So, you can rest assured you won't have to wear a winter coat in the middle of August in Ottawa. That's not the way it
with
works.
As much as good vibes as Cairo?
Hey, I can't promise that. I'm not organizing the event, so
but Simon will be there, like, to create the good vibe
to make sure it is the case.
I know that crossing the streets in Ottawa is safer than crossing the streets in Cairo. That I know for sure, but that's got nothing to do with the event. Ladies, we've come to the end of our session, and I just want to thank you the both of you for the time you took. I know you've got busy schedules, but I know that this was really key and important to get publishers out there to be aware that this is happening. I think there are a lot of people who are going to react, so we may get a lot more books coming in. And I invite again all people who are listening in to pass the message forward to others in your community in terms of getting those books out there. The links are up. They will be shared as well through the different PWB, WhatsApp, LinkedIn, Facebook groups. Please pass the word. We're looking for great books, and you may have that book. Don't be shy. Send it to us. And thank you, all of you, for paying attention. We want to thank Prashant. He's in the back room, as always, backstage, playing with the cameras. And it's been great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And
Thank you all.
Cheers to
Thank you,
all.
everybody.
Simon, Carolina, thank you so much.
Bye-bye,
Yes,
ladies.
thank you.
You can stay on board, by the way. We're going to go backstage.
Okay.